Retired Master Sergeant Raymond Ray Holloway sat in his usual corner booth at Murphy's Diner, the faint clink of silverware and hum of morning chatter filling the air. His coffee sat steaming beside a folded newspaper, black as midnight, and strong enough to wake the dead. The smell of frying bacon and warm toast wrapped the small-town diner in its familiar comfort. The routine was sacred every Tuesday. Same booth, same order, same calm silence before the world got loud again. He'd kept this ritual for 5 years without interruption. The leather creaked before the voice came. A shadow fell over Ray's newspaper, and a broad figure loomed above the table. "Move it, old man." "This is my table," the biker growled, his breath thick with smoke and arrogance. Ray looked up slowly, eyes steady behind wire-rimmed glasses, but he didn't move. The slap came out of nowhere, sharp and echoing off the walls like a rifle crack. The sting spread across Ray's cheek, reddening the weathered skin that had seen more battles than this entire diner combined. The chatter stopped. Forks froze midair. Every set of eyes turned toward the booth. The waitress by the counter gasped quietly. Mrs. Murphy herself stood pale behind the register. Ray's glasses slid to the floor, and the room seemed to hold its breath. He had turned 68 just 3 weeks ago, but there was still an iron steadiness in his frame. A man who had faced worse than loud bikers and cheap threats. For 30 years he'd worn the uniform. From the jungles of training grounds to the endless sand of foreign deserts, he'd walked away from gunfire, explosions, and nights so dark they swallowed sound itself. He'd come home with a limp that flared in the rain and a chest full of memories he never shared. He'd been a soldier longer than most men had been adults. The biker was Jake Thunder Morrison, president of the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club, a gang that strutted around town like they owned it. 6'4", nearly 300 pounds, covered in tattoos that screamed of fights and bad choices. For weeks, he'd been coming to Murphy's, demanding Ray's booth, throwing his weight around. Twice, Ray had let him have it. But today was different. Today, he'd decided he was done giving ground. Ray slowly picked up his glasses from the floor, straightened them on his nose, and looked up at Thunder. His voice, calm but firm, carried through the diner. "Been sitting here every Tuesday for 5 years? Find another spot." Thunder's grin turned cruel. "You got some nerve, old-timer?" His hand tightened into a fist, but Ray didn't flinch. The silence that followed made the biker's laughter sound hollow. People shifted uneasily in their seats, pretending to look elsewhere, afraid to draw attention. Ray didn't raise his voice, didn't argue. He simply reached into his pocket and took out his phone. Thunder laughed. "What's this? You calling the cops?" He leaned back, confident, spreading his leather jacket across the booth like a flag of victory. "Go ahead. Won't be the first time." "Oh." But Ray wasn't calling the police. His thumb pressed one number, a number he'd memorized long ago. "Michael," he said quietly when the line clicked. "I'm at Murphy's. Need you to come by." That was all. He didn't mention the slap, the insult, or the biker. He didn't need to. His son would understand. Michael Holloway had followed his father's path. West Point graduate, infantry officer. 3 tours in Afghanistan? The Army had shaped him the way it had shaped Ray: discipline, honor, quiet strength. He'd moved back to town a few years ago, working as a recruiter to guide young people who wanted to serve. As Ray ended the call, Thunder smirked, oblivious. "Guess Daddy's calling for backup," he mocked loudly, drawing forced laughter from his biker friends outside. He called the waitress over, ordered the most expensive thing on the menu, and kept talking about respect and strength. About how weak this town had become, Ray moved to a smaller table by the window. His cheeks still burning, but his hands steady. He sipped his coffee, eyes on the parking lot. The other customers kept quiet, fear filling the room like smoke. Some slipped out. Mrs. Murphy looked torn between calling for help and praying it wouldn't get worse. 10 minutes later, the rumble of engines rolled through the quiet morning. Not the roar of Harleys, but the deep, steady hum of military vehicles. Heads turned as a convoy pulled into the parking lot, 3 olive-drab trucks and a silver pickup leading the way. Doors opened, and soldiers stepped out, their uniforms crisp, boots polished. faces hard with purpose. Lieutenant Colonel Michael Holloway climbed out first, his new silver oak leaves gleaming on his collar. He hadn't even told his father about the promotion yet. He'd planned to surprise him over lunch. But the tone in his father's voice had changed everything. 12 soldiers followed him, men and women he'd trained and served with. They'd been at a ceremony when Michael got the call, and when they heard his tone, they didn't hesitate to come. The soldiers formed up in the lot with the kind of precision that silenced even the wind. Inside the diner, conversations died instantly. Thunder froze mid-bite as Michael stepped inside, flanked by 2 uniformed soldiers. The young officer's eyes swept the room, then landed on his father's reddened cheek. Ray gave a small nod toward the corner booth. That was all Michael needed. He turned to Thunder, voice low and controlled. Outside, now. Thunder blinked, confused. What is this? Some kind of show? Michael didn't answer. He just stared at him, steady, unreadable. The kind of stare only combat veterans carried, the kind that made men question their own courage. The biker hesitated, then stood, towering but unsure. He followed Michael out into the sunlight, the soldiers forming a quiet semicircle around them. The conversation outside lasted barely 7 minutes. No shouting, no violence, just calm words, measured tone, and the quiet weight of authority. When Thunder came back in, his swagger was gone. His shoulders slumped, eyes downcast. He walked to Ray's table and stopped. Sir, I am sorry for what I did. His voice trembled, stripped of pride. It won't happen again. Ray looked at him, studying the man, then nodded once. Respect isn't taken, he said. It's earned. Remember that. Thunder swallowed hard, nodded, and placed a $20 bill on the table. For your coffee, he muttered before leaving. The bell above the door jingled softly as he disappeared. The soldiers stood at ease near the entrance, watching until the biker's motorcycle faded down the road. Michael returned to his father's side, finally allowing himself a small smile. Ray's eyes flicked to the silver leaves on his son's collar, pride warming his expression. Didn't tell me you got promoted, Ray said quietly. Was saving it for lunch, Michael replied with a grin. Around them, tension melted away. Mrs. Murphy approached with tears in her eyes and insisted their meal was on the house. Other customers came by to shake Ray's hand, whispering thank yous and calling him a hero. Ray just smiled humbly, saying he was no hero, just a man who liked his coffee where it's always been. News spread across town before the day ended. The story made the front page of the local paper not as a tale of conflict, but of respect. The mayor sent Ray a letter naming him Honorary Citizen of the Year. The Iron Wolves packed up and left town for good. Their leader changed in ways no one expected. 2 weeks later, Ray received a letter in the mail. It was from Thunder. The handwriting was clumsy but honest. He wrote about learning what real strength looked like, how sometimes the toughest man in the room is the one who stays calm. From then on, every Tuesday morning, Michael joined his father at Murphy's. They sat in the corner booth, side by side, talking about life, service, and how some battles are fought without weapons. Other veterans started stopping by too, shaking hands, leaving coins on the table in quiet tribute. The booth became known as the Veterans Table, a small monument to dignity and strength. Ray replaced his broken glasses with a new pair, stronger, sturdier. He laughed when he put them on and said maybe sometimes. You had to lose something before you could see clearly again in the end. It wasn't a punch or a threat that restored peace. It was calm courage, earned respect, and the silent power of a soldier who'd never forgotten what he stood for. Real strength, Ray always said, isn't about how hard you hit, about how steady you stand when someone tests you.